Mitt Romney won the Republican nomination, tried and failed to win the presidency. Oftentimes that puts an end to it for a candidate because parties themselves may want to try a different flag bearer. Mitt Romney, however, has apparently decided to give it a try. He, we are told, spent the weekend and Monday calling up potential supporters and big-time donors and saying, hey, let's get the band back together. Bob Parks joins me now from the United States. Bob, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So as a conservative person, are you all giddy with delight and anticipation?
Well, you know, there's certain protocols when being on live television, especially news programs, and so you usually try to be hesitant when it comes to using any kind of gang signage. But when it comes to Mitt Romney, there's one that is quite apropos. Okay? The man
Really?
is a loser. And the problem with the Republican Party in this country is we have a couple of things that we keep repeating. One of them is the next person in line-itis. That's what gave us Bob Dole, because he was the next person in line, and he was beaten miserably. Then we had the next person in line was John McCain.
Yep.
He believed the media loved him because he was the maverick who oftentimes went up against the policies of the Republican Party and George W. Bush in particular. And so he bought into the press. It was his ego took hold, and we saw what happened to him. Mitt Romney was the next person in line, and we see what happened to him. When you're beating a team on the field, you don't lift your foot off the neck of the team that you're beating and let them get back up to fight back. Mitt Romney had pummeled Barack Obama in the first presidential debate last time out. His handlers, and we'll get to the handlers in a moment, they told him, oh, it's not looking good. I mean, you're beating up on him. The press is saying, oh, you were really hard on Barack Obama. So what did Mitt Romney do? Instead of having the killer instinct, he let his foot up off the neck of Obama, let Obama come back in the last two debates, and the rest is history. This area, the Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland, Washington, D.C. area, is complete with what are essentially political leeches. People who just work and jump from campaign to campaign to campaign, and you have the people who were in McCain's campaign migrated over to the Romney campaign, and they're all standing and ready to jump into whatever campaign ends up being the winner, but they'll jump on all these different primary candidates, and whoever ends up winning will absorb this machine, and it's the same losers will be guiding the next candidate unless that candidate is brave enough to purge and bring in his own people from the very beginning. That's not happening here. We're having Mitt Romney's people. We have the Jeb Bush, George Bush machine, and they're sort of sucking all the oxygen out of the room, making it very hard for legitimate candidates who are conservative. If you go back to fairly recent history with Ronald Reagan, he was unapologetically conservative, and he won two landslide elections. Ever since, we've had mostly squishy, compassionate conservative types who basically compromise with the Democrats and with the liberal thinking, trying to be somewhat likable to Democrats, and at the same time, what happens? Conservatives stay home, which happened in the last election.
So you were talking about that next in line, and certainly I see where you're right in that regard regarding both John McCain and Bob Dole. If not Mitt Romney, who's next in line?
Well, next in line
is it Jeb Bush?
would be, it would in as far as the GOP establishment thinking, it would be a George Bush or a Chris Christie.
Jeb Bush. You mean Jeb Bush?
Jeb Bush, sorry, and Chris Christie. And both of those are not really palatable to the conservative base. Now, as far as long shots are concerned, you have people like Scott Walker from Wisconsin, who basically battered for his terms as governor there under constant legal and political onslaught, recalls, and survived them all. My personal favorite would be someone like, and it's not because he's black, but Allen West. Allen West is a real favorite from a lot of conservatives. And he told me personally he is waiting for a calling, before he decides to jump in and he's off doing other things. But as far as a real conservative candidate out there, I don't really see one who is someone who would be embraced by the establishment. He'd probably be a threat to the establishment.
Bob, only a couple of seconds for this, but Mitt Romney says he would run to the right of Jeb Bush. Would he be believable in that?
I wouldn't believe him.
All right, well, I appreciate it, Bob. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Jerry.
Always good to have you.